begin this hearing today at 2:02 for planning, and we will start off with Miss Washington.
It's actually Miss Matthew from our office. She'll lead in with the presentation. Thanks.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, I'm sorry. Abigail. Okay.
Abigail, yes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and council members and administration officials. The proposed fiscal year 2022 budget for the Department of Planning totals $3 million, a decrease of approximately $190,000 or 5.9% from the fiscal year 2021 budget. This budget reflects a shift of county development special fund grant responsibilities from the Department of Planning to the new Department of Housing and Community Development for fiscal year 2022. The savings from the shift are partially offset by salary enhancements from the June 30, 2021 COLA and the proposed January 1st, 2022 COLA. Our analysis identifies these budget highlights on page 5, as well as one potential operating budget reduction of $50,000 in contractual consulting services for Master Plan 2030, also on page 5. Since the department was recently restructured and has a number of existing vacancies, the potential reduction would suggest that the department has an opportunity to utilize existing staff and fill vacancies with individuals with the necessary expertise for Master Plan 2030 development. Other discussion topics follow in the budget package, beginning on page 6, where we first identify the department's organizational changes reflected in the proposed budget. The analysis also presents changes within the department due to the COVID-19 pandemic, information on the master plan, and updates on the revitalization and business assistance programs and related COVID-19 response efforts. At this time, I would like to turn it over for discussion.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it, Ms. Matthew. And are there any questions by any of the members? Can't believe it can be this
Mr.
easy.
Chair,
Yes.
just want to, as I do whenever the planning department presents before the county council, is just state once again what a great job they're doing. Look forward to their outstanding work as they develop Master Plan 2030, working with all of us and with the respective communities that we represent. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sorry, Councilwoman Devon.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to thank Mr. Lafferty and the Planning Department for offering themselves up to being a part of the Lafarge group that we're putting together. I know that the Planning Department, more than anyone, knows how important this 425 acre property is in the 6th district and what it can mean for business opportunities, a chance to preserve some as well, and really take a look and bring to the county's attention the infrastructure that may need to, infrastructure improvements that will need to take place before we can do anything down there. So I just want to thank you, and thank you for offering my planning person to be a part of that as well, and letting them attend the roundtable as well, because it's just really great to have somebody from the agency there while these discussions are going on. So thank you, Steve.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Councilwoman. Yes, go right ahead.
Well, thank you. Echoing everyone else's comments, I want to thank the planning staff for all of their work over the years, and I look forward to working with you all A couple of the initiatives I know the council's passed, looking at the size of townhouses, for example, looking at the school overcrowding issue and the adequate public facilities ordinance. And also, I know there may be some changes we may want to make to the downtown Towson overlay and to the Honeygo area in Perry Hall. So thank you to all of you for your work.
Thank you, Councilman Marks. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Lafferty? Oh,
Mr.
wait a minute.
Chairman?
Councilman Quirk? Yes, sir.
Yeah, just real briefly, I guess I'll jump on this bus as well. Do appreciate Steve Lafferty and his work, and also everybody that's been working on the Arbutus Sustainable Communities Plan. We do appreciate all the effort, and clearly that's something very much wanted by the citizens of Arbutus, and so definitely just thanks for the job well done. It's an easy one for me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Quirk. Any other comments? Well, I'll just jump right in there with everyone else. And I know we had a design review committee at Liberty Road, and we certainly appreciate all the efforts of planning. And Ms. Gonay did an excellent job. And I know we're not 100% done, but I think it's appropriate to just congratulate you, Mr. Lafferty, for a job well done in that regard. I think everybody else has received you well in the position of planning. You come, with a reputation a mile long for being a very good person and a hard worker and somebody who's dedicated and committed to the citizens of Baltimore County. I appreciate it. And if we don't have any more questions or comments, I'll ask you, Mr. Lafferty, to give a few words, and then we can probably move on, I guess.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, and members of the council, thank you very much for the compliments for the department. We have a lot of terrific staff and work very hard, often with fewer resources than we'd prefer. Mr. Chairman, there were a number of questions that were presented by the auditors. I don't know if you want us to address any of those specifically or to make any general comments.
No, you can go right down the line with the question.
Okay, well, one of the first questions had to do with just sort of how the organization has changed. And since January, as many of you know, Amy Mante, who had been the division chief for community planning, was promoted to become the deputy with her many years of experience. We have created a separate group within the department, separating out the people who are doing data analysis and GIS, for instance, to create a separate division that will allow us to broaden the activities and the research work that they're doing to serve everybody. We have had a number of vacancies. I think the information that was provided was not quite accurate. We have we're hiring 2 new people as we speak. And we still have 2 other vacancies in part-time positions. Throughout the time of the pandemic, staff pivoted very well. Unfortunately, as all of us know, public in-person meetings were just not possible. That required a little more creativity. Councilman Quirk referenced the work in Arbutus, and that was our sort of model of how do you gather people together around what we've created as a hub, so there can be a lot of interaction. Certainly design work in Dundalk and Essex and Liberty Road have also had to work from a remote way and be more virtual, I think successfully. Credit to the staff as well. Back in the fall, they realized that the best way to get work done was to turn all the plans into electronic files. That way they could share them without physically having to sit around a table and work together. That's something that will continue, and I think has actually enhanced the ability of staff to get work done even when people aren't physically in the same space. The master plan is underway. I'll make a couple of comments and then ask Amy Mante if she would to describe some of the process since Amy is leading the process. We will not have our census figures until September, which not only will handicap us, but handicap everyone who relies upon census figures to do whatever calculations. And I know the redistricting commission that council has will also be impaired or impacted by that. We're still moving ahead though, and we'll plug those data points in when we receive them in September. I would like to comment about the $50,000 reduction that's been proposed. We have very talented staff, but and the whole planning process for the master plan will be very intense. We're meeting regularly. All the staff are going to be mobilized to the best we can. What we indicated was that we may need to hire someone to help us unify and write the document. We do not have anybody on staff currently who has that experience. And we don't have any appropriate vacancies to fill with someone who would be focused on writing. We will be hiring someone who does development review, and we'll be hiring someone who's going to be focused on data analysis, research, and GIS. And I would also suggest that if we don't need all that money for writing, that having outside third-party consultants available to us during the year is an invaluable resource. We're committed to finding the best practices, not only for our department, but for the county. And we don't necessarily know it all. We're a smart group of people, I think, but not necessarily the ones that have all the resources at hand. So I would urge the council to reconsider that recommendation and to leave the $50,000 in our budget. I'd like then to ask Amy to describe some of the activity on the master plan to date, and then I'll finish with other comments, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. So we're getting ready to kick off public side of things with the master plan in the next few weeks. We have 3 kickoff meetings scheduled virtually, of course, focusing on different districts around the county. We've aligned staff by council district. I think that's probably the best way to manage engagement, especially with having to do engagement virtually. So we're starting to move down that path this time. We've started meeting internally with agencies to get some of their input and talk to them about their perspective of the master plan. And we've also been working with a consultant that we hired to look at commercial real estate. Their process is coming to a close very soon in the summer. And the results from that effort will be online through the hub. We have set up this website that's based in GIS. So we sometimes refer to it as a hub, but outward facing, it looks like a website to the public. We've encouraged folks to join that. If you join that, you'll get updates when we post information about new meetings, links to meetings on WebEx. We post surveys, and we're trying to encourage folks to participate in those so that we can, follow up with them on that input. And we'll continue to use that hub as our main source of outreach and engagement throughout the process.
And Mr. Chairman, just to add on to that, we welcome, of course, all the council members pushing out information to urge the residents of their district to participate in the master plan. It'll only be an effective document if we're well represented everywhere and that all segments of the community are participating. So I think some of you have already let your residents know, and we ask you to continue to push out that information throughout the process, and particularly for the meetings coming up in a couple of weeks, May 17th, 18th, and 19th. The last question that was presented to us had to do with business assistance and revitalization. We continue to work in the districts with property owners who are interested in architect on call or a business improvement loan program, as well as with the revitalization tax credit. We have, of course, it's been slowed a bit as many businesses have focused more inwardly and making sure their operations are continuing, but we're still committed to making those resources available. just before the end of the fiscal year, the calendar year, money was distributed to business district groups, commercial revitalization groups, to work with their businesses on a number of issues. And we've been following up with those organizations to make sure the resources they received are able to be spent. And if there are any obstacles, that we try to help them overcome, provide technical assistance where possible. We've also, of course, we also recognize that the commercial revitalization tax credit's a valuable tool to stimulate investment. We are also asked about the Pikesville Armory. This is a project that, as many of you know, has multiple phases. The first phase that the Pikesville Armory Foundation, who we see as a partner, will be looking at will be the open space along Reisterstown Road, and then move on to the buildings themselves. The timing of any of that work will be dependent upon the state's disposition of the property. This county does, in this current fiscal year budget, the county executive has put aside $1 million. The state has already committed $1 million in its capital program as well. So the Pikesville Area Foundation will be well situated once disposition is completed by the state. With that, Mr. Chairman, happy to answer any further questions. And we have also Elizabeth Hance, who's our management analyst, and then of course Amy can take any questions as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lafferty. Any additional questions or comments from the members?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Go right ahead, Councilman Frando.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lafferty. Appreciate your joining us today. I do want to congratulate Amy Mante for her promotion. I must have missed that. So worked with Amy over the past few years, and she's a delight to work with. It has helped us out, helped our office out quite a bit. I just have one quick question on the design recommendations in Dundalk, Essex, and over on the west side. Can you remind me of the culmination date and when that report is going to be generated and distributed?
Well, there are two, and Amy may know the dates more specifically, Councilman, but I know that tonight, in fact, there is a community meeting that is going to be held, led by the advisory group on the Dundalk design criteria. Right. And then they will finish that up. I believe the Essex design guidelines are a few weeks behind where the Dundalk effort is. And Amy, do you have the dates or estimated dates for their conclusion?
So I have for the Dundalk guidelines that they will be going to the planning board for intro and public hearing on June 3rd. Or maybe it's just intro on June 3rd. Public hearing and present and vote on June 17th. And for Essex, I have somewhere, hang on one second. It's on the same, it's paralleling that. So the intro is on June 3rd, and then the hearing and vote is on June 17th in front of the planning board.
Okay, great. Thank you both.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any additional questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Let's go right ahead, Councilman DePoca.
Thank you. Mr. Lafferty indicated that that in the budget request was a position for funding to support shepherding Master Plan 2030 and weaving the dozens of meetings and the hundreds of voices we're going to hear into one voice. And that would be the voice of the county's Master Plan 2030. And I don't think this is unprecedented. I think that I know that in Master Plan 2010, that it was weaved into a single voice, woven, I should say, into a single voice by Rob Schutz. And Master Plan 2020, I'm not sure who pulled all of these community meetings and made it into a singular document so that it doesn't look like it's a patchwork of themes, but rather an effort that suggests how the county will move forward as we approach the year 2030. So I think it's reasonable for a planning director to request funding to have a person or an entity serve that function for his office. And so I would ask my colleagues to consider that. Secondarily, I just want to congratulate Amy Mante. It seems like as being deputy director, it seems like just yesterday she was recruited out of Hickory, North Carolina, to come to Baltimore to be a young planner, and now she's deputy for planning. So congratulations, Amy.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Okay, I guess this will conclude the planning budget hearing. And I guess we will stay right here for PAI. That'll be coming up in another 8 minutes. So if PAI is there's Mr. Gutwall, and if everyone else is ready, everybody okay if we just keep going? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you, members of the council.
Give me 1 second. Okay, I guess we will, everybody is here. Yes, we will go ahead with the legislative analyst is Ema.
Yep, correct, Amazing.
Amazing. Okay.
Yep.
Well,
Thank you.
welcome, sir, and take it away.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, council members, and everyone present today. The proposed FY 2022 budget for the Department of Permits, Approvals, and Inspections totals 13.7 million, excluding 1.8 million in Metropolitan District funds, which the council does not appropriate. As you can see on page 3 of the analysis, the general fund portion of the budget totals 10.4 million and increases by 281,000 or 2.8%, primarily due to a 1 million increase in personal expenses. The increase is partially offset by the transfer out of more than 700,000 in service contracts to the new neglected property committee fund, which is being proposed for establishment under bill for the 3-21 on the council's May 27th agenda. This new neglected property committee fund is being established as a non-lapsing special fund program to stabilize, repair, or demolish derelict, blighted, and deteriorated properties and structures. The new program will be funded with 1.5 million generated from related fines, liens, and fees collected from citations, plus 500,000 in PAYGO general fund contributions to capital. The special fund portion of the budget totals 3.3 million and increases by 2 million. The 2 million special fund increase is almost entirely attributable to the new neglected property community fund. The Board of Liquor License Commissioners oversees another special fund program. The proposed FY 2022 liquor license budget totals 797,000, an increase of 26,000 or 3.4%. On page 4 and 5, the analysis identifies various FY 2022 budget highlights, including several new positions, the new fund, and an IT capital project. Other topics for discussion, which begins on page 5, personnel, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on operations, the new neglected property community fund, and the liquor license fund. I should also note that our analysis identifies no potential budget reduction. At this time, I'd like to turn it over for discussion. Thank you.
Yay. Any questions so far from the member? Hearing none, Mr. Gutwall, you want to make a brief statement and do you have some questions?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. With me this afternoon is Ms. Joy Schaefer. She is our budget analyst for Department of Permits, Approvals, and Inspections. As you know, I'm relatively new in this position, and over the past year, the department has seen a lot of challenges. I just give the example. On my first week here, I had over 40 individuals quarantined or in isolation due to COVID and the pandemic. But we have not missed a step. I can tell you between March and April, we saw a 30% increase with the break of the weather in permitting, but we haven't lost a step. We're staying right in plan and actually making headway on improving our processes and dealing with the permitting applications that are coming in. Also, in addition, prior to my arrival in this department, as well as shortly thereafter, we had a number of retirements and resignations within the department and losing a lot of institutional knowledge. However, I will tell you, with the help of the county executive and Madam CAO, we are working diligently to fill those positions as quickly as we possibly can. As you know, our processes are what I would call a bit archaic in the paper world and was not very adaptable to the pandemic conditions. All that to say, we are moving fast and furious toward the 21st century with the assistance of OIT and implementing our land use regulation automation system. There is a planned rollout this fall for permits and inspections, and more to come as the phases move on. But that will drastically and significantly change our processes and make us more effective and efficient in producing and processing applications coming into the county. I will note that we were currently implementing our soft reopening for electrical permits only as a test pilot, but I mention this only because this process of reopening during at the end of this pandemic will easily transition us to adapting to the process of the new online permitting system that we start in the fall. That is my game plan, my idea of whatever we're doing with the soft reopening. This is we're going to mimic or transition to a reopening or to the online system that will happen in the fall. As part of this budget, the implementation of the Code Enforcement Task Force recommendations included the additional inspectors. The inclusion of these inspectors will assist the department in beefing up, if you will, the inspections and patrols in troubled spots. It'll enhance the community sweeps, which include increasing patrols, quality control, and monitoring for compliancy. Some of the issues that we deal with constantly are making sure that we're staying on top of the issues that are the violations that are out there, and these additional inspectors will help us resolve some of those things. In addition, it'll help us to respond to off-hour and weekend violations and implement other mechanisms, as many of you and your legislative aides we talked about, dealing with ongoing issues in our community, such as rat eradication. We're looking at increased methodologies using a gas form of way to eradicate rats. Dealing with abandoned vehicles, I'm currently working with the chief of staff and the police department to work and to coordinate with them on abandoned vehicles and untagged vehicles, and of course, my game plan to work with the law office on dealing with repeat offenders. All this is going to require additional resources to deal with a lot of the code enforcement issues, and that's where these 6 inspectors will come into play to help us meet those goals. and implement those programs. And finally, I would be remiss if I didn't mention our Sister Act legislation that I'm calling with budget, and thanks to Director Blades and Office of Budget and Finance. But then I got neglected property community fund. This will provide us the much needed resources to handle primarily junk, trash, and debris, but also tall weeds and grass, and the eradication program. To be more efficiently and effectively getting into this. A lot of times we have to, based on the budget, we're prioritizing some of these locations. This way, with the realization that there'll be a lien on that property and that money will come back into this revolving loan fund, and we have an increased amount of money to utilize. That'll help us get to these problem areas in the county much faster and quicker, instead of prioritizing and negotiating deals with the Department of Public Works. I'm kidding. That's just. But I did utilize them on a couple of areas to help us take care of some derelict properties. With that, I'll just open it up. I hope I answered most of those questions. If you want to go a deeper dive in some of the questions from the auditors, more than willing to answer any other questions. But thank you.
Thank you. I have Councilman Quirk.
Thank you, Chairman Jones, and thank you, Mr. Gutwald. And you talked some about it, so I just kind of wanted to maybe a little deeper dive into it. Is I know my district, I'm sure, and all the other 6 districts as well in the county, I think we have a pretty significant problem with frequent offenders. People that constantly violate code enforcement. For example, we have one on East Drive. I won't mention the address, but I know you know it. Repeat offenders where we go out and we fine them. They go before an ALJ. The ALJ reduces their fine considerably. A lot of times what happens is they basically don't clean up. Nothing happens. And then later on, they go back before the ALJ. And I know we can't control the ALJ. Obviously, that's obviously independent, completely different from us. But it doesn't help in the community when we have repeat code violators. When we go out and fine them, basically their fines get dropped by the ALJ, and then they go back and they do it again, or they don't clean it up, and it's like being on a merry-go-round and having the problem keep coming back and never getting fixed. And that's a real problem, these repeat offenders. And I know we've even talked about, could there be solutions with maybe even criminally charging some of these repeat offenders, or something that's actually going to get them to really come in compliance with the code, as opposed to just ignoring it and just basically never coming into compliance. So any other caller you would like to add on to that? I know it's something you're very aware of, and we do appreciate all your help as well in trying to tackle some of these repeat offenders. Thank you.
That's one of the things I have to, on my to-do list is to meet with the law office and take it to the next level. Yeah, writing citations and then ignoring us is a resource issue. And I'm in regular conversations with the county executive about this and the administration. But I definitely, in my past experience, we filed criminal charges against individuals that are repeat offenders, and that really grabs people's attention. So, in fact, the threat of filing criminal charges sometimes grabs people's attentions and incentivizes them, if that's a word, to get into compliance. So I need to, and there's a couple of other legal mechanisms that I want to discuss with the legal office, with the law office, to discuss how we can do that. I mean, there's a process that needs to be set up, obviously, and that's another, we got to identify the resources for that. But I think I totally agree with you. I'm completely aware of the repeat offenders, and it's a resource issue. We really, we need to we take it to a certain level, and then, we're done. We're just going to take it to a higher level, if you will, to grab people's attention that, we need to resolve this and be done with this property or this issue.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And I genuinely appreciate your personal, really hands-on approach, Mr. Gutwald. It's been great working with you. You've been great on many issues and very responsive. So I really like the job you're doing. And also, I love these sessions too, because we have everybody listening in. We have Mr. Blades, we have Ms. Rogers, we have everybody hearing about what's going on, and I'm sure want to be helpful as well. And so, yeah, I appreciate your response, and anything we can do to really crack down on these repeat offenders, because it's a big problem, and hopefully we can make some progress on that. Thanks again.
Sure.
Any additional questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Go right ahead, Councilman Crandall.
Mr. Gutwell, good to see you. It doesn't look like you're completely settled in yet. Do we need to send you some pictures or something?
Everybody makes that correct. I gotta get something over there.
Yes, you do.
I hit the ground
almost
running
said
from
that,
day one.
Todd.
I will tell you that much.
Todd, I almost commented on that exact thing. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Mr. Chair, may I be acknowledged?
Oh, go right ahead. No. Well.
no, that's
He
fine.
does-
That's fine, Mr. Chair.
He does
Huh?
have this wagon wheel on the wall that I gave him. That's our integrated management approach to working together as a team. So thank you, Mr. Gutwell, for at
Oh,
least
my
having
goodness.
the wagon wheel on the wall. Thank you, Mr.
Sure. Councilwoman Bevan?
Well, hold on a second.
Oh, you're not done?
I
thought
had
you were
more to
done. I
say
thought
than a
that's all you
crack on
had.
his office.
Come on,
Okay,
Todd.
well, I thought that's all you had. Go right ahead.
No, I have a little bit more than that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
So, Mr. Gutwell, I do appreciate a more proactive approach on how we deal with derelict houses. And I know that it's been something that Councilwoman Bevins has a property that she talked about for years, and it finally taken care of. I do have some concerns, however, and I was wondering if it was a discussion that the administration had when talking about the creation of this fund that looks to be at maybe 25% self-supported through code violations. And the concern I have is that you get into a situation where now the county is giving out citations and fines, and some of those fines could be very large, in the thousands or more, or in double in 5 digits instead of 4. So do you think the county is going to be questioned as to their motivations on some of these fines, and how are we prepared to handle the potential criticism? And I liken it to when police departments had quotas on traffic tickets or parking tickets, and the jurisdiction took some heat because of that. So I hope I'm explaining myself well enough to articulate the question.
Well, my initial response would be that the code dictates what the fine will be, right? And it identifies how many times, that the violation has occurred. So those fines, as they climb up, is because the number of times the property was inspected and the violation still existed. So that's it's sort of established and prescribed in code. But if we need if there's something else we need to do, if you think that because there's also the ability to, waive the fines or the liens on the property for compliance. And I think somebody mentioned, I think Councilman Quirk mentioned that the ALJ has the ability to wipe those liens out. So there's an opportunity for the individual to make their case in front of the hearing officer, say we're in compliance, we shouldn't have been fined this much money, and then they can eliminate or reduce the fine from whatever was cited to them or given to them. So I think that controls a lot of that.
Okay.
Mr. Crandall, if I could just add a little bit to Mr. Gutwald's statement.
Sure.
I think it would be ideal. There's no quota as far as trying to increase the amount of fines to increase the revenue going into this fund. It would be ideal if actually we lost revenue and we didn't need this fund because everyone started taking care of their property and we didn't need it. So hopefully we have the opposite effect. As opposed to having increased funds, we have increased fines, we have fewer fines.
Sure.
And this fund is also to be used for providing loans to people to bring their property into compliance. So then they would not be fined, and they would just reimburse the county for what the funds they need to come back into code compliance. And it's also available for grants. So, and I guess we'll get into that more when the bill is before you.
Okay. Thank you for that, Mr. Blades. So along the same lines, the same issue, I've talked with both of your predecessors about this, Mr. Gutwald. You and I haven't had a chance to do that yet. But as Councilman Quirk said, the liens don't scare anyone. So they just ignore them. And it's just the buyer of a property would just either assume the risk or ask the county to waive the lien, and the county, in order to get a vacant property, a derelict property, back into some sort of better form, the county would likely waive that lien. And I think the public and the folks that own these houses, whether it's a bank or it's just an absentee owner, that they kind of know this, so they just don't worry about the liens because they're never going to pay them anyway. So I'm not sure if the liens, I agree with you, I'm not sure if the liens are as such a preventative tool to disincentivize someone to not take care of their property. So I've talked about this, and I'd be supportive of legislation if it would be necessary to go after the pocketbook of the owners instead of a tax lien. And what I mean by that is just, and I think this we'd have to involve the judicial branch if we would do that, and that process would have to be set up, and we might have to do legislation on it. But I think if you put if you go directly after a person's or an owner's credit rating or a company's credit rating by doing just what the IRS does, you put a lien on their income. So I'd like to see us explore that if possible, if you're not already doing it. I understand that there's some hurdles to get through and some logistics to get through and how that would work, and how we would handle it. And I guess it would be a question as well for the law office. What resources would they have to apply to something like that? So can I get your thoughts on that? Or are we looking at doing something like that and getting a little more teeth into our punitive stuff?
Absolutely. I agree with both of them. I know I've spoken to many of your legislative aides and yourselves that, sometimes writing citations and putting things on properties, that's not an incentive to get into compliance. So we need to raise the bar on that. And whatever it is, whether it's, all options are on the table, obviously, but what I've seen most effective in my experience was filing criminal charges. That really wakes people up. And I get compliance because it's a judge, or it's either they're going to have a criminal charge on their record for the rest of their life, or they get in compliance. And typically people get in compliance. And I'm just going by my experience. But if there's other options, that's what I want to. Yes, it's on my radar as soon as possible, because again, it's a resource issue of chasing these people down and reinspection after reinspection and monitoring. We need to, if it's one property, that's one that, it's just got to move forward to the next level. We got to take it to the next level to create an incentive, if you will, to make them move and get into compliance. So, but we also have to keep in mind, we got to, there's due process, right? They have to have the opportunity to get in compliance. So, we're not going to go, the code allows me to go write the citation. I only have to issue a notice of correction, but sometimes that doesn't sit well with judges and people when you haven't given them all the opportunities to come into compliance. But once those opportunities have been given to them, we need to take it to the next level. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate those comments, and whatever our office can do to help, and I believe my colleagues feel the same way. If we can help in some way to bring some more teeth to what we have. And I was talking about the chronic ones, the ones where you look up on the code enforcement website, the database, and there are 20 violations in 3 years. Those are the ones that we're most concerned about, I think. So the last question I have for you is talk about resource drain. Like when we get so our office gets a complaint, we send it off to code enforcement or a constituent does, and if we're doing it over and over again, that means emails between county employees on a property that's just, and it's just taking time from everyone for something over and over again. And so one of the things along those same lines is when we're asked in our office, is there a permit for what this person is doing? Is there, and I know that we have a permit tool on My Neighborhood, but maybe it's just user error on my part. I just haven't gotten through the learning curve yet, but it seems to me that we send a lot of emails around saying, but we're permits pulled for this particular property, and we don't have the ability to just easily find these. So now you have emails going back and forth, and it just doesn't seem very efficient. So and I know the administration is all about transparency. So I was wondering, is there a more efficient way of having either a public facing database of permits or at least some easier way for our offices to access that information? And I'm talking about permits and hearing dates and things like that.
Well, it's all out there. It may not, I understand what you're saying. It's probably not as easy to navigate. My response to that is, with the new automation system, that'll make it, there'll be an online portal right there for people to look at all this stuff. And I am currently just started conversations with BC Stat to use that one tool so they can look up code violations. They can see if there's been something identified. The permit stuff is already out there, from my understanding as well, like you just said. So we just need to make sure that's on the BOCO site. So currently for enforcement issues, you can see whether and building permit issues, that system will be out there with BC. They're the ones designing that right now. I just was in a conversation about dealing with code enforcement. So,
well, that's encouraging. Sort of like another dashboard.
Right. Exactly.
Click on a property, you can see everything going on that property, from code enforcement to zoning to permits. Okay, that's encouraging. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm done.
Thank you, Councilman Crandall. Councilwoman Deb, thank you for your.
Thank you, Chairman. First, I'd like to say, Mr. Gutwell, it has really made a difference in my office and in my staff's life since you have been over there. I have to tell you, things have been much smoother. And when we are looking for something, you usually can find it. You tell us where it's been, why there's been a holdup, and that means everything to me, because then I can be very clear and concise when I'm talking to a constituent about their permit, and the explanation of why it's in a certain agency and why it's been there so long, and what exactly is going on. And I hadn't been able to obtain that information in the past, so that has really made things go a lot better, and as far as my office serving my constituency. I'd also like to say I agree with a lot of what Councilman Crandall has said. We have a lot of the same issues and repeat offenders, and he's right. I have really found with older residents who are the repeat offenders, they really just don't care about liens, because they're like, well, when I die, it'll be my kid's problem. The house is, I don't care what happens to the house. I'll be dead. I don't care what's on it. And they're just determined to live their life the way they want, not caring if it interferes with someone else's life, like their neighbor. So that has been really problematic for me in the past. So I just wanted to acknowledge that we have a lot of the same problems. I do want to talk about one thing that I'd like to know if you have been addressing this. We created legislation for the bins, and we had one bad actor. We might as well just talk about it. It was Planet Aid, the yellow bins. And we created legislation and we put all these stipulations in. Can't be closer than 500 feet, can't have two of them together, they gotta be on concrete, can't be on grass, gotta be on rocks. We put all these stipulations in and I saw nothing had changed. We had a conversation with you not too long ago about that. So I would like to know, because I was ready to just drive my district and just take pictures of every single box that's in violation. And I'm still willing to do that unless you tell me that there's already been something in place where you have been able to identify those boxes that are not supposed to be where they're located, either on a vacant property or, you know, whatever the legislation called for, that they're just not in compliance.
This is going to be a question. we do have a database of each one of them, but I have not been able to take it to the next level to find out which ones are out there in compliance and which ones are not.
It would take
talk
a
to you
lot of
offline about that. I mean, because there was some other administrative things that were going on prior to my take over here. So I'd love to talk to you offline about what's going on with donation bins, because there was some.
I'm going to help you out in my district, because I will start, as we see them, we'll send them to you, because I can't imagine the manpower it would take to just have somebody, driving around to these things, but none of mine have been moved. None of them. I haven't seen one moved, and, and they know the legislation existed. So that still tells me we did the right thing, because they're just bad actors. They're just bad actors. They're not going to do what they're supposed to do until we just haul them things out of Baltimore County. And we have so many other good organizations that are doing a really good job of making sure that junk doesn't, end up outside the box, and that they're emptied on a regular basis. And, we have people doing a really good job. And now we have these large, like Green Drop, that want to go onto mall parking lots, and they're manned, and that's going to be fantastic too. That way we don't have to worry about things being dumped again just on a corner outside of a box. I would suggest that we all start doing that. Todd, I know you got a lot of them that are really close together too, down in your district. And I think just as I drive, I'm just going to take note of them, Mr. Gutwall, and start sending them to you, and that'll kind of help you, I think.
Against our database.
Yeah, because I think once inspectors, because you see one, you just look up the street and there's two more, so I think we can really get a grip on this. And I'm saying right now, I want you to show no mercy, because these guys are awful. They really are. They're just awful. They're not, they don't care. They don't care. It's just another example of they're going to do whatever they want to do.
Councilwoman, can I chime in real quick?
Yeah.
So I'm willing to do the same thing that you are, and I think it's a great idea. Just as a suggestion, if Mr. Gutwald would share the locations that we're aware of, that could maybe save some mileage on our vehicles. Because I know where some of them are. I don't think I know where all of them are. So I don't know if that's possible, Pete, but I think
so. Yeah.
I'd certainly be willing to do it. Councilwoman is absolutely correct. I have a lot of them, and they are not maintained properly. So thank you.
Yeah, so if we can be helpful in any way, Mr. Gutwald, we'd like to help with that. And I know you've had a lot on your plate since getting over there. Again, you don't have anything on your walls. You haven't even had time to hang a picture. So you're doing a great job, and I want to thank you for what you're doing. And I look forward to working with you in the future, and all your staff, because they really are great folks to work with.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Bevins. Are there any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
Hey, this is Councilman Marks. I switched to my phone. I was having video problems, but hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, thank you. I want to echo what everyone else has been saying. Pete, you have really been very helpful. I've had several thorny issues, and you've tracked everything down, and I really appreciate all your help. I don't want to. I'm hesitant to single people out because you have a lot of really good employees in your department. But I want to thank Lionel in particular, and also Adam Whitlock. He is terrific. I mean, he's answering emails at 11 o'clock at night and midnight. He's just awesome, and I want to give him a shout out. I think there's a common theme we're hearing today, and it's that our constituents don't sympathize sometimes with the long due process that's put in place for dealing with some of these situations. And I, for one, would echo what Councilman Crandall said. I would be very supportive of much steeper fines for a lot of these issues. The question I want to ask has to do with over renting, and it's been a problem I've been dealing with for 10 years in the Towson area. The neighborhoods just never seem to get rid of situations where they clearly see that there's over renting occurring. And Mr. Moeller has tried to be very helpful. I don't know if it's a code issue. Have you given any thought to this, to how we could improve the dealing with over renting, particularly in Towson?
Specific area, is that over renting?
Over renting, yes.
Yeah. No, other than trying to look at rental registration and how we can improve upon that. I mean, not just the multifamily issue that I think Mr. Mueller was dealing with, but also how we can improve. And I've been in discussions with Mr. Mueller, who's on here tonight, afternoon as well, and code enforcement and livability codes and those kinds of things. But what ways can we beef up that rental registration so there's a coordinated effort, as well as making sure they are sticking with the requirements, but nothing to deal with the number or quantity of rentals, if that's what you're getting at. I haven't really broached that subject.
But I think what I'm talking about is where community, they clearly see properties being over rented, but they can never ever seem to get it addressed until the academic year ends. Mr. Moeller has been terrific. He comes to a lot of these community meetings. He's very responsive. But if it's something that needs to be done in the code to help with this, I'm all ears.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, are there any additional questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, go right ahead, Councilman Hope.
Thank you. So Mr. Gutwall and Ms. Rogers, I want to thank the administration for making the work of the code enforcement work group worthwhile. One of the things we uncovered during the work that we did was that we were understaffed in terms of code enforcement officers and inspectors. And so having 6 additional code enforcement inspectors in place and in the upcoming is something I think that we all believe we need. Certainly the work group recommended it and saw that we were going in the wrong direction in terms of the number of inspectors we have in relation to our population growth. So thank you, Pete, and also Ms. Rogers, if you could thank the county executive for taking the work seriously. I think anyone who volunteers for work groups always feels that it's worthwhile when there's actionable items that actually become articulated in the budget. And so I just want to thank Mr. Gutwall, thank the administration. And just one question as a follow-up to that is, do you know if we're losing any inspectors? I just wanted to see, or do you anticipate? You never can tell. I want to make sure that we have a net gain rather than net neutral or a slim gain. So, Pete, do you anticipate inspectors leaving?
It'll be a net gain. I think there's maybe one vacant position. There's been some shuffling around with duties right now, but this is totally a net gain.
Well, I would urge you, if that vacancy does come into place and for Mr. Blades and the administration to strongly consider filling any vacancies that occur in addition to the 6 new inspectors. So that's it. Thanks.
Yes, Ms. Rogers?
Thank you. Councilmember Patoka, you're spot on. Through the hiring freeze exemption, freeze process, we had a hiring freeze exemption work group to expeditiously fill priority positions. And believe you me, the code inspectors were definitely there. All of the staff and PAI were prioritized, and we will continue to do that. Mr. Blades, Director Benjamin, and I personally worked through all of those requests, so they were on the top of the list.
Thank you. And Ms. Rogers, thank you for identifying that item on Mr. Gutwald's wall was a wagon wheel. I thought it was a microphone right into Vladimir Putin's office. But it is a wagon wheel.
That's our operations symbol, that we work as a wagon wheel.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gutwald, let me take an opportunity to thank you also for being a tremendous assistance to me. I've had several issues that I was able to inquire about, and you were able to take care of it, you and your staff, very quickly. And I certainly appreciate it. Constituents I work for certainly appreciate it as well. I have a couple of questions. One is, I don't expect you to know the entire procedure, but I'm here to tell you I have an awful lot of issues with abandoned vehicles. And I understand, and I'm just wondering, from what I can tell, there appears not to be a difference between somebody's car in front of their home that the tag has expired and us going out marking that car, giving them a week or so to move it or whatever, and a completely burnt out car that someone brought to the community, set it ablaze, walked away, and the community had to look at that for weeks while we put tag on it after tag on it and wait for someone to come and drive it away, I guess. I don't know what the heck we're waiting on. But that is a serious issue that I would really appreciate if someone can look into. I would be more than happy to sit down and discuss the particular issues that I'm talking about. I have the pictures where we just wait for weeks for a car to be moved. And I just think, like I said, there's a difference between a car that maybe the tag is expired sitting in front of somebody's house and a car that's burnt out, trashed, every window broken out, and it's just an eyesore, yet there appears to be no mechanism or a lack of a willingness to move that car out quick.
Well, that's one of the things that I mentioned in my opening remarks, that yes, and I think there's these exist in every one of your districts, that I'm meeting with the police department so we can coordinate it. So there's a couple of issues. One, if it's in the public right of way, the other is if it's on the private property, and then having a towing agency, and again, allowing due process. People have the rights to claim their property, right? So we follow a process, but at the end of the day, we get it, we move it one way or the other. So, and there's this, probably takes the longest is that there's this finger pointing between others, and they play this game. They'll move it out to the right of way, they'll move it back to the property. They move it, once it's in the right of way, they move it in the back and forth. So that's what I'm talking about. I already have a meeting next week with Carl Zimmerman to talk about how we can improve dealing with abandoned vehicles. Like you're saying, there's one thing when it's a vehicle, it's another thing when we can clearly tell it's inoperable and abandoned. So I am working on that. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. And the only other question I had was just concerning the issue of some of these properties, these derelict properties. And, you know, it'd be real interesting to see here again, you know, what that process will look like. We know that we often talk about the really, really bad actors. That's obvious and clear to anyone who's looking. But it'd be interesting to see the entire process when it's said and done, so that we can, you know, always worry about the ones that's in the gray areas, the ones that's just across the line, making sure we don't overreact or underreact.
That's what I mean by, you know, when I say due process, we order a notice of correction. If the property owner is working with the county or the department on resolving the issue, we'll continue to work with them to try and resolve the issue. If they're completely ignoring us, that's when we have the levels of progression towards, you know, demolition or, you know, that kind of stuff. But in order to get onto the property to deal with some of these derelict properties, we need court orders, or we need permissions. We need permission from the property owner to say, go ahead, you can take care of that property. Or I need a court order to say you could go onto that property. You're allowed to go onto that property to clean it up. So, or an ALJ order. That's how we get onto some of the trash and dumping sites. So as long as we have those orders and we've gone through that progression of that process to get there, I'm hoping to move a little faster and furious on some of these ones that we know are just bad actors. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Any additional questions or comments? All right, well, I certainly appreciate it very much. And now we will move right along to the library, which is our last hearing for today. One second. Okay. Give me 1 second while I get this thing straight. Well, why wait on me? Let's get started. Everybody here for the library? Liz? Or Lauren? Who's the analyst who's going to handle this?
Zach Ament, if you would like to do the introduction, please.
Yes.
Good afternoon, councilmen and members of the council and distinguished guests. The proposed FY 2022 budget for the Department of Libraries totals $43.6 million, an increase of $441,000 or 1% over the FY 2021 budget, due primarily to increase in personnel expenses. The general fund portion of the budget totals $36.7 million, an increase of $1.4 million or 4.1%. The special fund portion of the budget totals $6.9 million and decreases by $1 million or 12.7%. On pages 4 and 5, various FY 2022 budget highlights have been identified, including new and deleted positions and capital projects. Based on our analysis, we have no potential budget reductions. Other topics for discussion, which begin on page 6, include personnel, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on operations and reopening plans, new service initiatives, and capital-related projects. At this time, I'd like to turn over for discussion.
Thank you very much, Zach. Any questions or comments so far for the members? Okay, I guess we'll move right on to our Director Sonia Alcantara Anton.
Word.
How did I do?
Alcantara Antoine.
Alcantara Anton. Fantastic. It was certainly a pleasure meeting you today, and it's good to see you again. And if you can give us a little, well, I can tell you, I'm not sure if anybody ever, am I the only one that met her today, or anybody else know her? Okay, so you might want to tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us something about the libraries we don't know. Let's get you to tell us anything. And then we will let you go into the questions that were asked by the audience.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the members of the council for having me here today. I'm still brand new. I've been on the job for 3 months, but I look forward to meeting all of you in person very soon so we can talk about libraries and we can get to know each other, and you can get to know me and my vision for the library system moving forward. So in terms of what we're doing here at the library system, we are serving our community with an increased focus on equity and inclusion, and making sure that we're providing meaningful resources and transformative services at the library that is going to lead to a more inclusive and connected community. So we do a lot to serve the community. However, there's always opportunities to extend our reach to serve the underserved in our community. So top priorities for us moving forward in the year ahead include eliminating barriers to access and going fine-free, having social workers at the library, attracting a more diverse staff that looks like the community we serve, having competitive salaries for our staff, expanding our outreach and making sure that we're meeting people where they are, eradicating digital inequity, and having 21st century library facilities, just to name a few. So over the next coming budget year, we're going to be aligning very closely to our strategic plan as well as the county strategic plan and creating opportunities so that we can better serve our customers. Let me address some of the questions that were asked by the auditors. Let's see, about salary changes and recruitment efforts going forward. There was a decision made in the library system long before I got here to switch to a single serve desk model system-wide so that we could provide more streamlined customer service and to consolidate several frontline positions that are responsible for direct customer service into one hybrid role. So doing so is going to require an adjustment in salaries so that the staff in those positions are equitably compensated for the work that they're doing. So we're looking forward to getting started on that this upcoming budget year. And in terms of recruitment, we have been under modified operations during the pandemic. However, we have been open. We've been doing curbside pickup and computer appointments, virtual programs. We've been busy distributing meals. We expanded our MiFi hotspots and Chromebooks so that residents would have access to the internet and technology during the pandemic. But we are looking forward to reopening a little bit more fully to the public in mid-May, and we'll be aligning with the county on that. So we're going to be reopening to the public at the same time that the county is as well. And so we are doing active recruitment to fill a number of vacancies that we have so that we will be ready for reopening, and eventually anticipating that we'll be reopening fully sometime down the line. And then eventually Reisterstown Library, which is currently closed for renovation, will be reopened fully in the fall. So we need to go ahead and recruit for some of those positions as well. In terms of new initiatives for the upcoming fiscal year, I mentioned the social worker in the library, and we're actively recruiting for that, and we're really excited about that. We are going to be launching a mobile library law center in mid-June, where we can be able to go out into the community and provide access to legal resources and information. And Fine Free for All is a big initiative that we're really excited about. When we look at who owes late fines and whose cards are blocked at Baltimore County Public Library, disproportionately it's folks that are in under-resourced and underserved parts of the county. And we are committed to eliminating all barriers to library access. So for any of us on this call, if we get a library late fine, it's annoying, but fortunately we can afford to pay it. But for the have-nots in our community, library fines are catastrophic and completely cuts off their access to the library. And these are the people who need libraries the most. So going fine free is not a new concept in libraries, and there's an established precedent. Public libraries across the country have been going fine free for the past several years, including much, much larger cities and communities than our own, like Los Angeles and Miami, for example. And here in Maryland, Baltimore City, Anne Arundel, Montgomery, PG, Howard County, they've all gone fine free. So we're not the first man on the moon here. We're in good company. And this action further aligns Baltimore County Public Library with how public librarianship looks like in the 21st century. And it's also the right thing to do for our community. There was another question about capital projects. We were excited to be able to invest in our library facilities. Library service has changed significantly over the past few decades, and a lot of that change has accelerated over the past few years. The average age of our library buildings is 50 years old. So just think of how much the world has changed over the past 50 years. And think of how much libraries have changed in the past 50 years. And yet not all of our facilities reflect that. In addition, our community is evolving, and their needs and expectations are evolving. So our library buildings have to keep up with that. So a top priority for me is ensuring that we have 21st century library facilities to fully meet the needs of our 21st century community. So we've made significant strides over the past decade, modernizing and refreshing some of our facilities. And in your report, there's a list of ongoing and upcoming capital projects that are slated for the next couple of fiscal years. We're looking forward to feasibility studies at Lansdowne and Towson and Woodlawn libraries that will identify the needs of the surrounding communities and illuminate what's possible in newly imagined library spaces, and more importantly, tap into some latent opportunities there. So for example, there's a health department space beneath Woodlawn Library that will be vacated this summer. And so we're looking forward to claiming that space officially for Baltimore County Public Library. Every day after school, the library sees about 200 teens at the library every day because they're coming from right next door from Woodlawn High School. So we're looking forward to being able to take that space over and provide a transformative library space and experiences for teens. Lansdowne is another example where the library is just too small to serve a community of its size. Minimum state guidelines is that libraries, there should be 1 square foot of library space per capita. And we're not close to that in Baltimore County overall, but nowhere is that discrepancy more glaring than at Lansdowne. There's a 5,000 square foot building there to serve a community that's about 15,000 in size. So we're hoping for a newer, larger building that adequately serves the community, capitalizes on the proximity to the senior center that's there, and blows the roof off, figuratively and literally, in terms of what library service can mean for the residents there. And Towson is another example where it's a great building, but there are some serious accessibility issues there that we're looking forward to identifying what the possibilities are with the feasibility study. There is a misprint in the report that the auditors provided to you talking about a feasibility study for Randallstown. That is not accurate. Randallstown underwent a renovation in 2017, and it's a beautiful facility. It's one of the few examples of a 21st century library here in the county. But at the time that it was renovated, there wasn't enough money in the budget to fully renovate the bottom level where the meeting room is located. So we're looking forward to getting the funding to finish the job properly and make sure that the residents of Randallstown have a fully renovated 21st century library facility from top to bottom. I'm here with Helen Rao, who is our Fiscal Services Manager, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, thank you so much for your presentation and your opening remarks. And let me just say that when Randallstown is absolutely beautiful. And when they redid Randallstown, I walked in there and I thought, did we put those windows in here? Because all of a sudden you can see across the room and see the windows. Whereas before we had the real high bookshelves and you never knew the windows were there unless you were up against the wall. So it is a beautiful space, and I look forward to that being replicated throughout the county. As it relates to the downstairs, the meeting room, when you're doing the meeting rooms, make sure we throw in all the bells and whistles in terms of AV equipment, so that people can plug in and do their PowerPoint presentations or play a movie or what have you. So on that note, what I'll do is, are there any questions or comments from the members? I see Councilman Quirk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And yeah, I was looking at the fiscal year 2022 capital budget as well, and just curious about ETA type of time frame when it comes to Catonsville Library with the interior renovation, and also Lansdowne Library. Obviously, it's a feasibility study and design, which is like a down payment for a much bigger, I guess, project. But any estimated time frame on either one of them, like when we can expect it to start and finish? I mean, are we looking at 2 or 3 years from now, or are we looking at a little quicker? So I'm just trying to understand what it means and kind of put a time frame around it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Quirk. Catonsville is now slated to start in December of 21. They had to recently expand the scope of the initial project due to some work that needs to happen. So they're in the process of revising the initial cost estimates and doing what they need to do to get that rolling. But we're excited to be able to finally get started with that renovation in December. And that will be a year-long renovation. As for the Lansdowne feasibility study, we're ready to go like yesterday. We're excited. We're going to be working with property management and the Office of Budget and Finance on the process for getting that started. So we anticipate that sometime in FY22 we'll get going on that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councilman Kent.
Hi. I have a number of questions. The first one being, I really appreciate the county executive's initiative to place social workers in the communities in Baltimore County. They've been added to, more have been added to the school system. What my question is, what exactly are the social workers in the libraries going to be doing? And more importantly, the work that they do, is it going to somehow be coordinated with the school system, with social services, et cetera?
Thank you, Councilman. It's a great question. So the reason why the social workers at the library is so important is because, libraries are, one of the trusted institutions that we have in the community. And we see people from all walks of life at all stages of life. And sometimes they come to a library in crisis. Sometimes they come to a library and they have needs. And, currently without social workers, we do the best that we can to provide resources and to provide referrals. But at the end of the day, we're librarians, we're not social workers. So having social workers at the library provides that extra level of support and expertise that our residents need, but also our staff. So they're going to be providing clinical assistance, referrals, outreach, training for staff, information programs and services for the community about social work and things like that. And I think it's going to be an added benefit. I'll add that we got a $300,000 grant to be able to start the social worker in the library program. So we're right now recruiting for our first social worker, but our goal is eventually to have at least 3 around the county, so that regardless of which library you go to, there should be a social worker close by on staff that can help with serving the needs of residents. And yes, we will be partnering with Health and Human Services and schools, and just to be able to expand upon the service that we want to provide, but also to collaborate with them and pool resources where we can.
Right now, I would assume that you refer people who need certain services that you don't provide right now to Health and Human Services, et cetera. Okay. My second question is, with the no fines and et cetera, does that start immediately or start in July of 2021?
Well, technically, if the council approves this in the budget, it would start in July 1, at the start of the fiscal year, technically. However, over the past year, due to the pandemic, we really haven't been charging late fines at all. So, we would just continue with that if possible. And we're already fine free for youth, which was really wonderful, just being able to clear the records of thousands of children whose cards were blocked. So to be able to extend that to the entire community is something that we've been working towards and would really welcome council support in making that happen.
Is the no fines, et cetera, is that limited to children or is it everyone?
So right now we are fine free for youth. And what's in the budget is to go fine free for everybody else. So for adults.
Now, in the other library systems that you said, for some years they've had no fines, et cetera. Was the finding that it really didn't have much effect on the system, that it didn't cost the taxpayers much money, or how did it work? I mean, are people not returning books anymore? Many, are there ones that get lost or never brought back? Is the problem of returning books late denying people the opportunity to get the same book? Can you just tell me what the studies have shown?
So to be clear, what we are eliminating is late fines, right? So if you have a book or an item that's checked out, it's like 10 cents a day per day per item, and those fines rack up. But if you don't return the item, even if we are fine free, we would still charge you for the item, assuming that it's lost or you damaged it or you want to keep it because you like it so much. So we would seek to recoup. We would continue to seek to recoup those costs. But in terms of the libraries that have gone fine free nationwide, what the data shows, but also anecdotally, what they're saying is that once the announcement goes out that there's no more late fines, people start coming back to the library, and then all the books that they were holding on to, all of a sudden they start bringing them back. So currently we do charge late fines, and for libraries that have gone fine free, they're comparing pre-fine free and post-fine free, and they're seeing that late fines really don't provide an incentive or a deterrent for not bringing books back, if that makes sense, right? So, but what it does do is it cuts people off from using the library. And I've been in libraries for a number of years, and I can tell you there's so many stories of people who won't even get a library card for themselves or their children because they're so freaked out about library fines and late fines, and like, oh no, we can't afford that. So then they don't even go and get a library card in the first place. So those are the people that we want to connect with library service. And we want to bring people back to the library, people that have stopped using the library because they feel like they can't afford the fines.
Okay, just one more question with thank you so far. I believe that 30 positions are being eliminated, and from what I get from the fiscal note, that money is being used to increase the salaries of others who are staying there. Can you explain that? And maybe give an example of the amount of increase that these individuals will get.
Sure. So the positions that have been reduced, these are just positions that we've lost due to retirements or attrition. And then some of that attrition was accelerated during the pandemic, where for various reasons people were seeking other opportunities elsewhere, or just leaving the library system, leaving their jobs in the library system. And we kind of underwent a self-imposed hiring freeze during the pandemic, because there really wasn't any point in filling vacancies when we were, under modified services during the pandemic. So that's where a lot of the salary savings have come from, that have allowed us to be able to increase the salaries of the folks that are in that hybrid position that I mentioned earlier. Helen, who is on the call, do you want to chime in and talk a little bit more about the cost?
Sure. So basically what we're doing is we're going to modify our salary scale. So we're aligning the part-time people with the full-time people, and we're also taking some of the full-time people and we're going to bump them up one step. So I think some of the costs are listed in the packet, but I think it's roughly maybe a 35% pay increase for the staff. And we're aligning them. We're basically going to be compensating people for the additional duties that they're having by the single service desk. So some circulation staff are doing more historic information tasks. So.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's pretty much it.
You say 35% increase?
But yes, these are hourly workers that are. So I think, like the starting salary, let me have it here. Someone who maybe had been making, in the mid $12 an hour would go up to $16 per hour.
Does this have anything to do with the legislation, that enabling legislation that gave people the right to organize?
No, this has been in the works for a couple of years. The hybrid position has been there for some time.
Okay.
Because we moved to something called core services, where certain there's certain specific tasks that all staff were supposed to do, and the staff were doing additional responsibilities.
Okay, I'm sorry, Councilman Katz, you done?
Yeah, I just had one very quick question. Are any of these hybrid employees going to become full-time employees, or is that not the intention?
Well, a lot of our part-time people do become full-time. So,
right. And
yeah,
so they'll be eligible for benefits, et cetera. So, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Mr.
And
Chair,
then,
go ahead.
I was going to mention one thing. As part of the whole process with the hybrid position, we had part-time people who did more circulation tasks, and then we had part-time librarians. And as we've been moving towards the hybrid position, we haven't been filling the part-time librarian positions, and those would maybe make $19, $20 to start off. So the hybrid position is definitely what it means. It's in the middle, sort of combining the two. So yes, people are getting a higher position, but they're doing a lot more jobs, and they could be getting more.
The increased hours, basically.
Increased hours?
In other words, they're going to be working more hours.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay.
Yeah. And also with the single service model, it did create greater efficiency. So there was, a person would come in, they wouldn't have to know which desk do I go to and then be redirected. They go to one place and could get their questions answered there. And it just led to greater efficiency.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Councilman Mark.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have one question, and it's about the feasibility study for the Towson Library. Can you address that, please?
Yeah, so I mentioned that Towson has some serious accessibility issues that limit the ability for residents to fully and properly use the building. So for example, if you have mobility issues, If you're a mom with a stroller, you can't just walk in through the front door and get into the library. You typically have to kind of walk around the building and in a weird way and access the elevator to get into the building itself, into the library itself. Another issue that we're not a fan of is that you have to pay to park to use the library at Towson. And so, you know, we would be very interested in exploring what the possibilities are. It's a pretty big building. The last estimate that we had, which was back in 2017, what it would cost to renovate this building was pretty significant. And so I think that that's going to be part of the question that the feasibility study has to answer for us. You know, is it more cost effective to renovate and update the facility that we're in, or does it make more sense for us to be in another facility altogether? And what's going to be the most cost effective, and what's going to give residents the most bang for their buck? So that's kind of what we're thinking about, and just looking forward to just engaging in that study and in that discussion during this year.
Okay, thank you very much. I know they have been pushing for an elevator there for years. Towson is a unique structure, and I really appreciate seeing that in the budget. Are we still shooting for mid-May for an opening of the libraries?
Yes, May 17th to be specific.
May 17th, okay. I don't hold this against you because you've only been on the job 3 months, but I felt like I haven't gotten very much communication over the course of the pandemic about the libraries. We get a lot of questions from people, and I've gotten the answers, but I don't hold it against you. You've only been on the job for 3 months, and I look forward to working with you, but I feel like I was kind of lost for a little bit, and I'm happy to hear that we are getting around to reopening. So thank you.
Thanks for bringing that to my attention. I'll make sure that we're communicating more going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, and I like a lot of your vision. I think it builds upon what Paula Miller had set in place with the hubs. I think that's terrific, and look forward to working with you in the future.
Likewise.
Ms. Rogers? You're muted, Ms. Rogers.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and council members, and our new innovative director. Just wanted to share one quick comment. The social work in the library model is a national best practice model. During my tenure as director of Baltimore City Social Services, we had a wonderful working relationship with South Pratt Library, where they had social worker in some of the libraries. And what I'll say to you is that relationship, you know, where the rubber meets the road, brought back a lot of valuable information to us about what community members needed, they did not know about, what services are available, and expanded that communication. So libraries who have social workers in their operations really do enhance that communication network. The other thing is, for some of our youth, foster youth, it brought back information to us confidentially of some of their needs that was not being communicated back based on their living situations and other things, that they developed that wonderful rapport with that social worker. So it's definitely a best practice, something we fully support and appreciate the library endeavoring to move forward.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Let me just say that I did have a question about the legal. Well, let's start with the ID cards for the library. I thought there was some efforts afoot, and maybe you can bring me up to speed on a situation where we would have either one card or no card, or kids could use their school IDs, or how come everybody else can't use their driver's license? Are we still issuing cards?
Thank you, Chairman Jones. I have not heard of an effort here at Baltimore County to do something like that. Although that does really interest me. A number of larger communities across the country have done something like that, where the student ID card is the same thing as the library card, which gives kids access to museums or rec centers or parks or other public facilities in the area. So I do like the idea of a combined card. Again, I'm not aware that that's an activity that we've engaged in or that it's an area of focus for us, but if I know that that's something that you're interested in and interested in working with us on, I'd be happy to explore it and see what we can do to make it happen and work with our partners in Rex and Park as well as in the schools to see what we can do to make it happen.
Thank you very much for your willingness to look into that, and I'm certainly welcome to help everywhere I can. I think it makes sense. I guess the other issue for me was you were talking about a legal service. I know we used to have, lawyers in the library. Is this an extension of that?
Yes, exactly right. So our mobile library law center is a grant-funded vehicle, and it's in partnership with Maryland Legal Aid. So previously they were providing legal assistance in the libraries, and now they're going to be also providing that via this mobile service. And we'll be driving around town, and we'll be providing access to legal resources, legal advice, and we'll be working closely with the Department of Economic and Workforce Development, who is going to be launching their own, a mobile job center vehicle. So we're looking forward to partnering up with them and showing up together at the same time, at the same place, and having a schedule where people can come and access legal help and resources at the same time that they're accessing workforce development opportunities and assistance.
So a person would have a one-stop shop. They can come and talk to a social worker and work out their problems. They can go into the legal library and sue their current employer, and then they can go next door and to the workforce development and look for a new job at the same time. Listen, let me just say that I've always said it. I think we're going to get to a point where we're going to have to rebrand the library just because of the evolution that it is more. Maybe someday we'll have library and community center underneath, because clearly it's the services that we provide in our libraries nowadays are so much more than just books. So I certainly appreciate it, and I look forward to the evolution as we continue to provide services to the citizens. Any additional questions or comments for Ms. Alcantara Antone? Okay, I believe that does it. I would like to officially, I know we're 3 months late, but I just saw you today, so I would like to officially welcome you to Baltimore County, and we look forward to working with you. And I think you did an excellent job today, and nice to see you. So any additional comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Councilman Katz.
Yeah, I have a question for Ms. Rogers. Is she still there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm
Yeah,
here.
Okay, we're putting social workers in the libraries. We have social workers in school. We have social workers, in health and human services. When are we going to get to the point, as the chairman just spoke about, a one-stop shopping? In other words, I guess it's going to be possible for someone to get help from the social worker in the library system than from another social worker in the school system. And what I envision is that, as I said, one-stop shopping, that, if somebody needs services, that we're not going to have duplication, that we're going to have an efficient and effective system in place to serve the people. So I just like to know what the intentions are of the administration in regard to not having duplication of services?
An excellent question, Councilmember Catch. I would say that the library effort is really a information referral and guidance type of effort. You have to think about social work in the aspect of services delivered by either local and municipal government and then state government based on certain federal requirements. For example, certain social workers who deliver child welfare services, which is a lot of my background area, are guided by Title 4E services. And that's federal funding that comes in to do that. Their service delivery comes through the state to the county and integrates with county services. It's about an integrated model of services. So a social worker in a library can clearly help identify concerns, serve as the information and referral source around services available. And a lot of times that's what the problem is. Community members may not be readily aware of what supports they can have. And national models actually have those kind of centers in libraries. Libraries have literally become the hub of communities. Then if you go on the senior side, the continuum, you have social workers and other human service type workers, adult protective services, who are governed by the department, at the federal level, HHS Administration on Aging. So they deliver their services. But having a person who is knowledgeable of the full continuum and can get people to the right services and can get people who have identified certain needs, whether it's mental health, whether it's food insecurity, whether it's young people who are concerned about issues that they don't feel comfortable talking to their teacher or somebody in the school system or home, getting that information to the right person in whatever part of the continuum is what a social worker in a library would do. So I believe that that is getting us to a quote unquote one-stop shop. No one social worker can handle every particular need based on literally how they're funded, but a social worker in the library is a resource to community to do just what I think you're describing.
Thank you very much. Very informative. Thank you.
My pleasure, sir. That's where my heart and soul is.
Yeah.
Oh, we know, Ms. Rogers, we know. Okay, I believe that'll do it for this evening.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councilman DeFoe.
Just a comment from Ms. Rogers. She got me thinking about the Pikesville Library, which has both a
senior
center and a library, and many of the users. So you have the users of that building range in age from infants to older adults, and the social worker, the expertise of a social worker could be very different for those that work with our aging community and those that work with an adolescent or younger community. So I was just wondering kind of what the vision is for, I don't know that there's and you know this because you were head of DSS, that there's, I'm not sure that there's a social worker that has a specialty for all ages, or is there?
Yes,
social worker?
Generalist social workers, absolutely. Social workers who are geared toward, that support system in general. And then some are focused on child welfare and adolescent services, and some focus on gerontological services. But general social workers, they are quadraphonic, if I can use that word.
Quadraphonic. That's a term that Wade and I haven't heard in a long time. And Wade probably, I saw that audio system behind Wade was quadraphonic. But in any case, I'll end it by welcoming Ms. Alcantara Antoine to the team. So thank you.
Quad means 4.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
All right, everyone.
Chairman Jones, just one quick thing I wanted to point out that the $200,000 for the feasibility study for the Randallstown Library, that was on the bulk project listing, but I just learned that was an error on the part of the budget office. So unless Ed has anything further to add, that was where the 200.
Ooh, it was a typo on our part. I'll take ownership of that one.
I know where that money, I know what that money is. That money is money for a sign, for a neon LED sign to wrap around the building. And I saw that as a feasibility study and I thought, wow, man, what is this? That's okay. We'll figure it out. We'll take the 200,000 and what do we do with it? You have any ideas, Wade?
Yeah, I think it should go into athletic fields in my district.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Wade.
You're welcome.
All right, I think that'll do it for this afternoon.
Well, Mr. Blades, if he's upset over this attack from the audit office, if you want to talk with me, maybe you can talk it through.
Oh, we're used to it. We're used to it.
Real personally. So
the things are very good this year, I think.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think
They
things
are.
are going well in terms of our phase 3 process.
Absolutely.
Everything.
So I want to thank everybody again and welcome Miss Alcantara Nicole. No, I got the wrong name. I'm looking at somebody else's name in my book here. Let me get it right. I'm messing myself up. Miss Alcantara Anton to the library in Baltimore County. And that'll do it for me for this afternoon. Thank you, everybody. Be safe. God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Chair
Thank
and
you.
council members.